It is week 8 of the Climate Tech Inc. NFL Prediction Show. Cole McDaniel here with Vince McKee. And for 48 years, family owned and operated, Climate Tech has been the premier company for all HVAC services for both residential and commercial. They have it covered. They offer free estimates on equipment replacement and 24-hour emergency service. Visit them at climate-tech.com. Now, this week, a lot of fun things going on with football, playoff football here in the state of Ohio for high school. Of course, so that coverage going to be ramping up. Things will look a little bit different. But of course, you're seeing, and you've probably already seen actually this week, the preview show that we're now doing here on the YouTube channel, really previewing those postseason games. Now, I'm going to be out writing at those games. Same with Dom Clary, same with all that staff. Again, looking forward to this upcoming week and these upcoming weeks here down the rest of the road. Of course, college football still in full swing, the NFL in full swing, and Vince and I had much better weeks on our picks here this last week compared to previous ones. Vince, good to be with you again.
Yeah, good to be here, Cole. Thanks for having me on the show today. So,
well, you are a co-host. I mean, it's kind of a given.
Hey, look, all joking aside, this weekend's going to be great. You said I got the shirt on to promote it this week. Keon Sports. We're going to be at 20 high school football playoff games. They cannot get started soon enough. This, as me and Cole have talked about so many times, definitely my favorite time of year. We got all the sports going on at once. Checking the schedule here and 3 Big Ten games for us to talk about today. You guys have already seen the high school football podcast. Just some big things once again with Keon Sports. And hey, Climate Tech, thanks again. Let's get to it. I am excited. 1-point lead, 7 weeks in. We got, I think, like 11 weeks of regular season to go and all kinds of craziness. 5 more weeks or 6 more weeks to Deshaun Watson. Let the countdown begin, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Well, Vince went ahead and spoiled it as we start with college football. We're actually going to talk about 3 Big Ten games this week, and it's going to be a fun slate of Big Ten matchups, so that's why we're going to touch on multiple Big Ten games. Starting with the top 25, number 2 Ohio State travels to number 13 Penn State, Happy Valley. Now, this is not a whiteout at night, which you're typically used to for the Buckeyes going on the road against Penn State. It is a noon game, Fox's big noon kickoff, so still going to be a great matchup, but probably takes away even more of that home field rowdiness, that loud crowd, not being a night game. Probably helps out the Buckeyes even more, and definitely leaning that way is, at least in the early stages of this week, Ohio State was a 15.5-point favorite in this game, Vince. How do you see this one going?
I think the Buckeyes are going to take it. They're on such a roll right now. I don't think Penn State's going to be the team to stop them. There's 2 reasons why. You mentioned one of them. If this was a night game, a whiteout, we've seen the best of Ohio State teams go in Happy Valley and lose in those kind of situations. They're avoiding that. Number 2, Michigan beat Penn State a few weeks ago, beat them pretty soundly as well. Ohio State, I'm sure, saw that, has studied the tape, knows what to expect. It's 2 different attacks that Ohio State brings, that Michigan brings. It's 2 very different attacks. And I understand that, but there's the matter of pride and principle on the line as well. And that alone, there's no way Ohio State wants to lose ever, let alone to a team that Michigan just beat. So for all those reasons and more, we're going to go with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, and there have been a lot of great games this year, but Ohio State, to this point, has had a fairly easy schedule. Just the way everything shook out, you would have thought that Notre Dame game, although it was big in week 1, hindsight, Notre Dame hasn't really been that good this year. So really just affects the Buckeyes, and we haven't really talked too much about them here this year, but they really look like top 2 team, and I argue they're the number 1 team. Defense is greatly improved. They're really top 5 in defense in the country, performing well. Part of that has to do with the teams that they played against. Part of it has to do with Jim Knowles and his defense and the way they play football. On offense, though, they're high-powered. Now, they can get it done in a variety of ways. They can be physical with that run game if they need to. They have the offensive line to do it. Mayan Williams, that physical back. You have the shiftiness and the athleticism of Travion Henderson. They can do it on the ground, but they can do it in the air as well. even without a fully healthy Jackson Smith and Jigba. We haven't really seen much of him at all this season. But Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison Jr., Cade Stover at tight end, Julian Fleming. We've seen all those guys be impactful. Stroud's been able to hit them. I think there's too many weapons, too many guys for Penn State to even slow them down, because you're not going to stop them. Can you slow them down enough? And even if they slow them down on a couple drives, will Sean Clifford and that offense get it done? I don't think so. Not against that improved Buckeye defense. I have Ohio State rolling 48-20, continuing to just march through this season. It's going to be a big freight train collision, probably between Ohio State and Michigan into the season, and we'll see how all that shakes out. But I really think that the Buckeyes have a huge advantage going to Happy Valley, especially with it being a noon game.
It'll be a lot of fun to watch, I'll tell you that. I don't know if I have a 48-20, whitewash, no pun intended there, but I do think they win by at least 10 points.
Now, another one that's interesting, a big matchup also in the Big Ten East as we switch to the Big Ten game. Of course, these are all Big Ten games, but number 4 Michigan going up against Michigan State. Now, Michigan has always looked at Michigan State as the little brother, but the little brother grew, got bigger, and started putting it to the big brother for quite a while here as of late. Michigan has struggled with Michigan State. And Kenneth Walker last season, too, ran all over the Wolverines. Now, this Michigan State team coming in at 3-4. Michigan favored by 22 points. And 22 points flat over Michigan State. Vince, do you think Michigan wins? And if so, will they win more than 22 points?
I think they win and they cover the spread. This is a much different team, and I think this is going to be their year. I mean, and again, they won last year, correct? I'm almost positive Michigan won last year.
Michigan State won last year at home.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
Kenneth Walker had that really big game, ran all over them.
I know you just said that. I just didn't realize they had won the game as well. Don't know what I was thinking on that one. Well, that being the case, then Michigan owes them a receipt. So even more so a reason. I just think they're a lot better this year, Cole. They got past Ohio State last year. They're getting past some of their demons. This is a game Jim Harbaugh needs to win. Shame on me for not doing my homework on that game. I don't know why. For some reason, I thought it must have been Penn State they beat last year. I just know they beat 2 really good Big Ten teams. And I knew for sure one of them was Ohio State. My apology on the mess up. But that aside, they're a lot better this year. Michigan State took a huge step back. For all those reasons and more, going to go with the Wolverines.
So I think Michigan's actually worse than last year. Their defense was more explosive last year. They're more physical. They were better with Aiden Hutchinson. Offensively, I still think they had a little bit more physicality last year. I don't think they have that same physicality. Blake Corum, he is an explosive running back. He's very talented. I still question at quarterback. J.J. McCarthy, yes, he has the legs. I question his ability, his accuracy, his consistency. That being said, Michigan's still better than Michigan State here. Last year when Michigan State beat the Wolverines, Michigan State won. Very next week, Michigan State was set to come to Ohio State, and you're thinking, well, this Michigan State team could give the Buckeyes a test. No, complete opposite. Buckeyes shut down Kenneth Walker. They blew the doors off of the Spartans. Spartans, they're down from last year. So I have Michigan winning this game as well. 34-20. I don't think they cover the spread. I think it's going to be physical. You're still going to see a little bit of a battle between these two. Michigan's going to win out. Second half, they'll get the ground game going if they didn't already in the first half. I just don't think it's going to be nearly as big of a blowout as I think most people would expect from this game.
Yeah, I guess, because I actually see it being a landslide.
So the last one, the other game. I want to talk about this as we stick in the Big Ten because of the ranked team. Number 17, Illinois, plays against Nebraska. They're going on the road up against the Cornhuskers. Illinois, the team leading the Big Ten West right now. I think if you would have asked anybody at the start of the season, very few, if anybody, would have actually guessed that Illinois would be that team there leading the charge. An opportunity for them to really keep a nearly unbeaten record. They're 6-1, looking to move to 7-1, but never easy to go to Nebraska. Yeah, it's a Nebraska team that they had the firing of Scott Frost earlier in the season. They have their issues, but Illinois only a 7.5-point favorite in this game going on the road. Vince, how do you see this one?
Range 7.5 points. You think it would be more, and I think it's solely because where they have to play. Even that being said, though, Nebraska's been a train wreck this season. A lot of comings and goings. You don't know which way they're going to turn next. So many things still undecided there. And Illinois, are they really that good? Who have they beaten that would jump off the page and say, yeah, this is our landmark win? Although they're 6-1 for a reason. 6 wins in college football, never easy to come by. Now with the Big Ten schedule well underway, let's see how far they could take it. I feel like rolling the dice. I'm actually going to go with Nebraska at home to pull a stunning upset here.
Wow. Nebraska getting the win over Illinois. That is an interesting one there. I am going with the Fighting Illini. I think they get it done in this game, 31-14. Last 5 games have been wins for Illinois alone. They beat Virginia, shut out Chattanooga. They beat Wisconsin 34-10. Iowa in a close 9-6 battle, defensive battle. And then they beat Minnesota 26-14. So really actually a decent slate there, because even though Wisconsin had the firing of their coach, still enough talent on that roster. Iowa's defense is extremely difficult to go up against. Minnesota, they look like they had maybe the opportunity to win the West, maybe still in the hunt as well. But I think Illinois has actually put together some decent wins there. And talking about what they're doing to get these wins, Chase Brown, their junior running back, has been very explosive. On the season, 192 rushes. He's already over 1,000 yards, 1,059 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's having a great season, and they're just about halfway through, looking to continue to add to what they've been doing. A little over halfway through. But like I said, he wants to continue to build on the great season that he is having. I just think Illinois gets it done here. And if I had to guess, obviously it's going to come down to Ohio State and Michigan at the end of the season. It would be hard to believe that at home, the Buckeyes are going to then lose back-to-back years against the Wolverines. So my guess is that you would probably see Ohio State be able to come away with the win there. We'll see them maybe win out. That would be my best prediction as of right now. So if we see Ohio State win out, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Big Ten championship between the Buckeyes and the Fighting Illini. So
it'd be a lot of fun.
They're in a good spot.
That would be it'd be great to see 2 new teams. Well, not new teams, but at least a new opponent in the big one for Ohio State. I remember a couple of years ago when they played Northwestern, the COVID years, we always call it. I mean, those types of matchups are fun because it's not the ones you're used to seeing in the biggest of games.
No, it's not. It's not at all. But as we switch off of the Big Ten and college football and we move to the NFL, we talked about last week being much better for me and Vince. Both of us, we split and we went, I believe it was 10-5. I have us both going 10-5 last week. So Vince now moves up to 62-47 on the season. I moved to 61-48. Still just one game splitting us here right now. That's it. We're almost nearly identical still through week 7. We're moving into week 8, and we'll see how many we actually have different this week. And we'll start with the marquee matchup. Now, marquee matchup is at SoFi as the Los Angeles Rams host the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of times these two teams seem to have a possibility of splitting. A lot of division matchups, you see that happening. The Rams fell to the Niners already earlier in the season on the road. Now, can the Rams get the win, or do the Niners get the win here? And I'm going to start this one off here, Vince. I'm going to say that the San Francisco 49ers come away with this win. And through the regular season, they go 2-0 versus the Rams. That offensive line struggling to protect Matthew Stafford. We're seeing those issues that they're having pieced together. If it's not going to Cooper Kupp, it's going to be incomplete, or Stafford's going to get sacked. It seems like Cooper Kupp is really his only trusted weapon. They have good players still on the defense, but your defense isn't enough alone to get you wins. I still question at the beginning of that season when we were talking about Matthew Stafford's elbow, it hasn't been something that's been talked about much. Is that still causing him a little bit of an issue? Is it still bugging him? I don't know if that's a factor or not a factor, but there's something off with the Rams this season. And I think that Niners front, too physical for that offensive line of the Rams. I think they're going to apply some pressure. And I think Christian McCaffrey finds himself in the game plan now that he is in San Francisco. Could be a close one, actually, would be my guess. But I have the Niners winning that one, like I said, 26-23.
It's a tough game because the 49ers have had the Rams number going back 3 or 4 seasons with the sole exception of that NFC championship game. And they almost beat them there too, right? Now,
Right.
To me, this is what I'm going to be calling that make it or break it week. All 4 of my picks have to do with teams that are either going to make it this season or break it, and they're kind of on the borderline right now. I'm going to roll the dice here and go against my better judgment. I'm actually going to take the Rams as I look down at my picks. Just want to double check something here I have written down, but yep, certainly going with the Rams. I have a few notes too that I wanted to point out before I forget. One, the lack of running game. You have Cam Akers, you had Henderson. You had these options for the Rams that just have not worked out, which has gone ahead and put even more pressure on the Rams, right? And like we said, we don't really know how bad that elbow is with Matt Stafford. Haven't heard really anything about it since week 1. They had a big fight in preseason. Aaron Donald hit somebody with their helmet. Just a lot of right? I'm not wrong.
No, you're right.
A lot of strange things have been happening. So for me, this is the make it or break it week. I'm going to go with the Rams one more time to make it. This is it's not a risky pick, but it is. I mean, how often could you say picking the defending Super Bowl champions is risky? Right? Now, I will say this one last thing, though, about the 49ers. I'm excited because they've always had a stout defense. I mean, last week they were up against a buzzsaw. Kansas City was on a mission.
Right.
But for the most part, they have a great defense, right? So what can Shanahan do with Christian McCaffrey? This should be fun to watch. This might, you look at the beginning of the season, real quick. Yeah, no Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, Jimmy G wasn't expected to play. So all of a sudden you have a really 2 of your biggest pieces are completely different. Let's see what they could do. If they could get this worked out, it might not be this week, but if Shanahan could really get this worked out, call me crazy. 49ers might be a Super Bowl favorite.
We'll see. It's very possible.
I just picked against them. So what does that say about me?
Yeah, it's the 49ers are a team that you and I both agreed that with them moving to Trey Lance, we didn't think they'd even really make it to the playoffs and maybe just miss the playoffs. Now with Jimmy G, I have more confidence in them. Has Jimmy G been fantastic? No, but he's been Jimmy G. He's been good enough. You talked about it last week. They ran into the buzzsaw of the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not reading too much into that. That's why I'm going with the Niners here in this one. But it's fun that you and I are already split here. We already went 2 opposite directions early on here. So we moved to Sunday Night Football. A matchup where I'd be shocked if we end up being split on this one. The Buffalo Bills and the Green Bay Packers. Now it's the Packers going on the road to New York to take on the Bills. Vince, do the Bills get this one done? Or does Aaron Rodgers finally kind of get things rolling again?
It's make it or break it in Green Bay, and this week they will break it. They are playing the worst possible team at the worst possible time. This is a Packers team that really needs to get it figured out and fast, and this is not the game you want to play. Buffalo, very good to begin with, even better at home. Now, I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I actually see Aaron Rodgers balling out in this game, but I think they're going to lose on the final drive of the game. He is going to throw an interception. I usually don't make predictions like this, but I think Rodgers is going to have a great game. They're going to go all the way down to the end. They're going to need a touchdown to win it, and he's going to get picked off. But what then, right? There's a couple teams here as I keep looking down at my notes, but there's a couple teams here this week where you have a veteran quarterback. Okay, you have Tom Brady with the Buccaneers. We still have no idea what's going on there. And then now you have the Rodgers situation starting to develop in Green Bay. We didn't think much of it, Cole. Every year on draft night, we joke around. Our good friend Mike Rogers, the big Packers fan, and we always joke around about how they never pick any weapons for him in the first or second round. I think it's finally starting to catch up with him. He doesn't have Devontae Adams this year to bail him out.
Nope.
His other threats have taken a step back. Lazard has not stepped up like they thought he would. He's been injury prone. They've had a million issues in Green Bay. They have two half running backs. They have Aaron Jones, more of a pass catching running back, and they have Dylan, more of a bruiser. But at the end of the day, Rodgers needs consistency, and I'm not seeing it quite yet. Am I going to count them out completely? No, I'm definitely not. This is a team that has played an NFC Championship game back-to-back years. Do I think they're going to win this week? No, I do not. Going with Buffalo.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, those guys having their struggles this year, age and other factors catching up to them. There's been a lot of bad football in the league here this year. Matt Ryan has been benched in Indy. We've seen a lot of those veteran quarterbacks that they've had their struggles. And not just veteran quarterbacks that found their way to new teams having their struggles.
Yes.
Russell Wilson struggling. Carson Wentz, he's been having some struggles. There have been some okay moments, but he's been having struggles. Now he's been out. And we'll see if he ever makes it back to being a starter once he comes back from the thumb injury. So we could just go really down the list. Baker Mayfield, a lot of different quarterbacks that have gone to different places that have found their struggles. Okay. Now, looking at this one, Aaron Rodgers going to Buffalo, has to go up against Josh Allen, that explosive offense. Packers defense is still a good defense, but I don't think it's enough to shut down the Buffalo Bills in this game. I just think the Buffalo Bills, they're too high-powered. They have too much ability. Now, I make score predictions all the time. The reason I do so is because there are a lot of people out there who they love to bet. They want to know about the spreads. They want to know all those things. So I like to give my predictions so people can at least piece it together and see, hey, is he thinking the over? Is he thinking the under? Even though we're not specifically talking about it here in the show, we're talking about straight up. But straight up in this game, Bills win, but it's not a blowout. I'm with you. I have this one 35-27. Packers still having a chance, maybe towards the end of the game, just not being able to get it done. The Bills have a little bit too much. And like I said, the Packers, they're not going to be completely out of the question with their division, but they're going to need to play some catch up. They're going to need to catch a spark here soon. And I don't know if this is going to be the week that's going to give them that spark. Again, it's just an inopportune time to go up against the Buffalo Bills, and it's not going to work out in their favor. So we'll see if they can get back on track, though.
Okay. Yep.
So we turn to our upsets. And I have a gut feeling of who you're going to go with, but I'm not even going to bring up that team. It's a team that is typically on your radar almost every single week. But I'm going a different direction. A team that I picked against this past week, who they have a surprisingly good record, are underdogs on the road at a tough place to travel to and play. A team that's actually impressed this season so far. I'm going to take the New York Giants against the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are actually the favorites. Giants are the underdogs there. I don't know who to go with here in many ways, just because Geno Smith's been playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
Kenneth Walker is a good running back. They still have some decent pieces there, but I still have a lot of questions for the Seattle Seahawks. Is it sustainable? Do I trust their defense enough? Do I trust the offensive line enough, as I still think they're making their improvements? I'm not sure. And the Giants, I doubted them enough, but they're continuing to prove that they can win. Even when I picked the Jaguars probably should have won that game last week, and the Giants kind of made that comeback towards the end and ended up taking the lead later in the game and never gave it up. So I'm going with the Giants here. It's not going to come back to bite me this time. And the way you're looking here right now, I wouldn't be surprised if this is your upset pick here as well.
It's not. I'm actually going with Seattle, and I'll explain in a second. But I'm watching the game the other day. It gets down to the end, and for whatever reason, CBS didn't cut to it. So obviously, it was a Fox game, but I'm watching the CBS post game after the embarrassing Browns. As I'm watching it, they're talking about it, they're doing the play-by-play, and all I'm thinking to myself is Jacksonville's going to get the ball back as they did, drive down the field as they did, and get cut off, get cut off at the goal line as they did for the third straight week. The only difference was
Unreal.
it's unbelievable. The only difference was is that it wasn't on a Thursday night and it wasn't like the focus game for me and you to be going back and forth. I did not text you. I let it be. But the entire time that was going on, I'm like, this is gonna happen for a third straight week. I can't believe how lucky I've been. Okay, and that's pure luck. I gotta say, pure luck, very little skill. All right. That being said, I agree with you with Seattle. I know you're picking the Giants, but I do agree that they're playing out of their minds. I didn't see this coming. Cole, I thought Seattle was going to win like 4 games all year. I mean, I'm stunned.
Me too. Me too.
And you look at the loss against the Saints, they scored like almost 40 points in that game. So they're doing something right on offense. Pete Carroll's a genius. I really don't like the guy, but I have to give him because of his USC days. It's just stuck with me. Right. But that I have to give him credit. My upset pick, again, my whole theme this week was make it or break it. My make it or break it team this week, and if they're not the underdog, then I got a couple other ones because I know how lines tend to move. But as of today, I had them listed as an underdog, and that's Arizona at Minnesota. So I took Arizona, make it or break it. I think they're going to make it. This is the week now. You know, they've won a couple of games. They had a horrible start to the year. Usually in the months of October and November, they're very, very good. This is when you see them kind of soar, no pun intended. But usually when they bump up their win total, then they get to December and they start to choke it away. Minnesota, believe it or not, I mean, and my gosh, is this a polarizing team between me and you? We've talked about Minnesota over the years. We've never been impressed. But hey, I got to give it to them. They're 5-1 for a reason, right? Kirk Cousins playing well. Running game there with Cook. You know, Justin Jefferson is probably the best receiver in the NFL, if not top 5, with Jamar Chase and a few others. He's right there. He doesn't get the exposure of a Cooper Kupp, but I think he's every bit as valuable for Kirk Cousins. All that being said, though, I still think this is finally the week where Arizona busts out and actually gets a pretty big road win to take over. So that is my official upset pick, going with Arizona. But I'm going to throw another one out there just for the hell of it, because we mentioned his name a little bit earlier. We actually talked about him very, very briefly, or at least I did. And that's Tom Brady with Tampa Bay. Make it or break it. They're going to host Baltimore. I have not been impressed with Baltimore all season long. I think they've stunk. They barely beat Cleveland. They've been up on teams in fourth quarters, haven't been hung on to the lead. A really good Tom Brady is an angry Tom Brady, and that's what I think he is now. So I'm going to give you guys a 2-for-1 there. Tampa Bay, the last time I looked at it, and I could be wrong, but the last time I looked at it, they were an underdog. So I'm taking Tampa Bay and Arizona for your 2 make it or break it's.
Well, you're either going to probably pull away, or I'm going to manage to take the lead because we got a lot of games different here this week.
Yeah, both those.
Yeah, I have Baltimore against the Buccaneers. I think Tom Brady's really struggling. That team's struggling. They got a good defense. I'll give them that, but it's not doing much for them. I mean, they lost to the Panthers. Now, you and I both like PJ Walker. We like him in the XFL. So we're enjoying seeing him play. But like I said, I can't believe that the Panthers got the win there over the Bucs. But the Bucs look terrible. So I went with the Ravens. And I was tempted by the Cardinals. I actually think that's a really good matchup between the Cardinals and the Vikings. It's in Minnesota, in that dome. The Cardinals last year, they started off hot. Midway through the season, they started to fall off. Well, they didn't start off hot this year. And we're getting close to that midway point, right around that midway point. I don't know if they can really piece it together and do it. I haven't been impressed with the Cardinals here this year. But I have been impressed with the way that the the Vikings have performed. On offense, Justin Jefferson has been good. Their defense has been better than what I expected. They're leading their division there in an opportunity to probably continue to pull away. I know it's not a division matchup, but still give themselves another step in the right direction with a fantastic record.
This is a big flip week for them, Cole. A big flip week.
Yeah.
When you really sit and look at it, because if Minnesota wins and Green Bay is, like we both picked, probably going to use the Buffalo, then they got a 3-game cushion.
Yep, absolutely. So we're on a lot of different pages. Last thing before we move to the Browns, I want to point out. Vince, a couple weeks ago, you and I talked about this before we actually talked about it on the show. Now we kind of unveiled what I was thinking, and you've hopped on the bandwagon for. We thought the Colts might tank for CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. And I'm specifically thinking Stroud would fit their system better, so that's why I say Stroud. But the Colts have now moved off of Matt Ryan. They're going to start Sam Ehlinger. I think they're cashing in this season. I think they're going for a quarterback. They're going to try to get their first really high quarterback draft pick and try to settle on somebody, since they've had a wave of quarterbacks coming in and out since Andrew Luck retired. I think the tank's on, Vince.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to wait until next year to cash in all their bad luck. Sometimes you just got to call it a draw. And this is the case for the Colts. Can't believe I'm saying this. Cole sent me the text a few weeks ago, kind of thought he was messing around, thought it was a bit of a joke. Yeah, they might be tanking, which is nuts to think when you have one of the best running backs in the NFL. But he's dinged up. They're barely using him. It's just been a horrible year in Indianapolis. Still, though, if I'm thinking correctly, I think they're 3-3-1, which is nuts to think. 3 wins from that team, which has been garbage. I've benefited a couple times. Finally picked them one too many times last week and lost to Cole as he had Tennessee. But yeah, it could happen. And I mean, I'll say this too before we get way off track. Monday Night Football with Justin Fields and how they did that with him and Herbert and Montgomery. That's the kind of offense that if the Colts do get CJ Stroud next year, they need to take a look at.
Right.
Because you have that many weapons in the backfield, you could use them. And Cole, let me just see who are they playing this week? They're playing Washington, right?
The Washington Commanders.
I took the Commanders. I'm going to go ahead and assume you took the Commanders as well.
That's correct. Yep. I think that tank is on, and there's a lot of teams that could be in that mix that have been winning some games lately. It might be opening up the door, opening up a path for the Colts. So as we're running a little bit shorter on time, though, we're going to get to the Browns here. The Browns had another chance to maybe win against the Baltimore Ravens. They didn't do so. Frustrations in the locker room, apparently screaming. And that's actually, honestly, what needs to be happening, because these guys need to care, okay? They need to care about football. They need to have the desire to go out there and win the game. And hopefully that gives them enough of a spark. Now, the one thing is on Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals, the Bengals should win this game. But, Vince, the Browns have had good success against Joe Burrow and the Bengals here in recent history. How do you feel about this one?
It's so weird that I'm talking to you about this game in this situation, considering the fact that the Browns have had really good luck against Joe Burrow, and they've been able to shut down Jamar Chase, right? Mm-hmm. And I had to play against both those players in fantasy football this coming week, who are owned by the one and only Cole McDaniel. So I took a look, and he's got Nick Chubb. I have no chance at winning this game. So, anyways, that aside, I think the Browns are going to lose. It's going to stink because this is another make or break week. And I was thinking about this again today too. If the Browns could win this week and go to 3-5, I almost felt that if they could get 4 wins with Jacoby Brissett, just 4 wins, if they would have got 4-7, it would have been very difficult, but they still could have made the playoffs at 10-7. Let's say Watson comes back and they just go nuts, right? That looks like it's a million miles away, which is hard to fathom 4 wins being that much of a struggle for the Browns. They really blew it those first 4 games. They're playing uphill. They're not calling the best of plays. Kareem Hunt's going to be gone soon enough. Go check out my article on KeyOnSports.com. 3 players that will probably be departing. There's a guy, Cole, and I'll make this quick because I know we're short on time. there's a guy who they throw the ball to twice a game, usually on that last drive of the game. Here we go again, where the Browns need this drive. I think this is 5 weeks in a row or something insane, or at least 4 weeks in a row, right? Four
Yep.
straight losses. Throw the ball to David Bell, for the love of God, especially
Yep.
when it's third and 2. Okay, let's go to that 3rd and 2 play one more time. Sure, you want to go deep to Cooper. That's all well and great, but you get the pass interference call. It doesn't even count. Either run the ball to Chubb in that situation because it's 4-down territory and you have timeouts,
Right.
or throw the ball to David Bell, who you know is going to catch it. You put it anywhere near that guy, he's going to catch it. It's so aggravating. Week after week after week, it's so aggravating. They continue to go away from it. And like I said last week, I'm not going to pick the Browns again until it's like dead obvious they're going to win a game. It's not yet. Had to go with the Bengals, and I'm already going to call it. I think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Hurst, all of them are going to have a monster day.
Well,
Monster night.
I'm with you that David Njoku being out should also be a call for using David Bell for more of that short yardage. Find him sitting down underneath because you won't have quite the same tight end. You'll have Harrison Bryant. You can utilize him, but I think it's time to get the young David Bell involved. He's a sure-handed receiver. He just catches it when the ball gets close to him. Now, the Browns have had the Bengals number, and you would think I'd be going here with the Ravens. And I went with the Ravens last week. You went with the Ravens last week. You'd think I'd be going with the Bengals here again. Well, I was thinking about this. Monday night, they've got more time to think things over. They've just had the Bengals number here lately. So I'm going with the Cleveland Browns to win a close one on that Monday night over the Bengals. I think they're going to be able to do just enough to at least slow down Burrow and Chase. Of course, if there's no Denzel Ward, it's going to be a little bit tougher. But I still believe in Greg Newsome. I believe in the physicality of Martin Emerson. They still have some good corners. I'm not loving the safeties. I think John Johnson needs to maybe seems like maybe a little lackadaisical there in the secondary, needs to step it up. And you know how I feel about Grant Delpit. But I think the corners can be physical enough and good enough that they can at least slow it down. You can get that run game going. And I actually think that Brissett keying on Cooper and Njoku so much, now with Njoku out, it could help Brissett learn to actually read the defense a little bit more, go through his reads, go through some progressions. And I'm hoping that allows for DPJ, Harrison Bryant, David Bell, some of those guys to see the football and see him spread the ball around more, since he can't just throw it to only Cooper and Njoku. We'll see if that happens, but I have it being a 3-point game. 30-27 is how I have that one. I think it's going to be a good one come Monday night, and it gives them an opportunity to be 3-5 and be one step closer to where they probably need to be to have a far but still a chance when Watson gets back.
Currently working on a book called Cleveland Browns 1st and 10, and the bulk of the book is going to be about the Cleveland Browns since 1999 on, when they returned to the league. Almost done with it. One of the chapters I've been working on is called Primetime Browns, and it focuses on all their big wins on primetime national television since they've been back. So a lot of Sunday night games, a lot of Thursday night games. Going through that, they actually have a winning record that are for games that are played at night at home. It's insane to think, but for whatever reason, they seem to step it up in those games. Can they do it again? As a Browns fan, I hope they do, but still, stick with my Bengals pick. And Cole just kind of jotting things down over here. We do have quite a bit different. If you want to see Cole's picks and my full picks, make sure you click on the article as well. We know you're on YouTube right now. Make sure to swing over to KeyOnSports.com, where you will see our full slate of picks. Colio McDaniel, take us home, my man. Great show.
For 48 years, family-owned and operated, Climate Tech has been the premier company for all HVAC services. For both residential and commercial, they have it covered. They offer free estimates on equipment replacement and 24-hour emergency service. Visit them at climate-tech.com. So we'll see what happens Monday night with the Browns. You and I are split on that. Like you said, we're split on a lot of games. It is going to be a fun week of NFL football then for us. Of course, we're looking forward to college football. And we talked about playoff football here in high school. I'm going to be down at Medina as they play against Strongsville, a little bit of a rematch of the game that we called earlier this season, that three-man crew of Dom, Brandon, and myself. Now, as for you, Vince, where will you be at?
John Marshall at St. Ignatius. Look for a full recap Friday night.
Perfect. And check that out on keonsports.com. Everybody, enjoy your night. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back next week.